It is my honor to introduce the Chancellor of Louisiana Delta Community College, Dr. Randy Esters.
When she does that, I can't wait to introduce the Chancellor. It's like somebody should say, let's get ready to rumble! I love it when she introduces. Y'all, welcome to Delta. We appreciate y'all coming out so much. This is an honor. I've got to visit with Sophia a little bit before the thing, and I can tell you, y'all are in for a treat because she is a ball of energy and just a joy to get to know it just a little bit. So I won't take the time. I know that y'all didn't come here to see me, even though that's a bit shocking, I understand. But thank y'all for coming out, and please know that this is your college. This is your community, and we work for you. We are your servants. So, welcome. We hope you enjoy the evening, and I know you will. So with that, I will turn the mic over.
So this evening, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Sophia A. Nelson, Esquire. She's an award-winning author, award-winning journalist, and a renowned international inspirational speaker. Nelson is a national columnist for several major outlets, including the Washington Post, CNN Opinion, and she serves as a contributing editor to the Bureau. You can see Nelson regularly on CNN, MSNBC, and PBS as a legal and political analyst, as well as other national outlets like Morning Joe, The Today Show, and Dr. Oz. Nelson has served as an adjunct professor in Virginia and as a scholar, lecturer, and panelist at elite Ivy League schools such as Harvard, JFK School of Government, Grambling University, Hampton University, Philander Smith College and Southern University, LSU Health Science Medical School, Butler University, DePaul University, just to name a few. She is a Pulitzer Prize nominated author in letters, as well as an award-winning corporate diversity and inclusion trainer, a member of Alpha Support Incorporated, and is a retired attorney admitted to the prestigious bar of the United States Supreme Court. She's a former historic first Black female investigative counsel of the United States House of Representatives Majority Staff for the Committee on Government Reform and Oversight in 1997, a senior lobbyist for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and a senior counsel with the international law firm of Holland and Knight, LLP. Nelson received her Juris Doctorate degree from American University, Washington College of Law in 1994, and her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from San Diego State University in 1990. Nelson is the author of 4 nonfiction books: Black Woman Redefined, The Woman Code, E-Publish 1, and her newest release in June 2022, Be the One You Need, 21 Life Lessons I Learned While Taking Care of Everyone But Me. And this evening, we are so honored also to have as a moderator, Mrs. Jasmine Anderson. She is an Associate Press Award-winning journalist and public speaker. She has covered news stories across the South for more than a decade. She anchors Good Morning Louisiana, Arkless, and the noon broadcast on the #1 station in Monroe, KNOE. She's a lifetime member of several professional organizations, including the Monroe chapter of Toastmasters, National Association of Black Journalists, Investigative Reporters, and Editors, and the illustrious Alpha Support Incorporated. Before we start our session, we invite to the podium Ms. Beverly Lewis, who is Director of Economic Development, Community Initiatives, and Spiritual Care. Ms. Lewis will speak from a community public health perspective to talk about COVID and how COVID affected the public in general. Please welcome her.
when we were dealing with COVID is the isolation. And it became so apparent, not only with adults, but with children. Caregivers and care providers really needed help themselves. So this is so appropriate that we're having this conversation today. And I'm so blessed to be here. That's one of the things that we saw, because COVID is still around. So what we saw were people coming in with chronic diseases that got even worse. But the problem was, how did they deal with it emotionally? And as the care providers and caretakers themselves became patients, it was so apparent that they needed also to know how to take care of themselves. So that's some of the things that we've seen in the public and healthcare arena, is those not really knowing how to take care of themselves, as well as with us as healthcare providers. Burnout, depression, anxiety, and all of the things that we saw and had to go through. Family members not being able to touch, not being able to come in with loved ones. And as a nurse, that hurts to have to tell somebody that. So this is so appropriate for us today as we look into the community and into the public to say, you need to take care of yourself. These are lessons that you need to learn as well as all of us. So I'm elated to be here, I'm excited to be here, and I can truly say that these lessons, all 21, I can relate to. But the one that stood out the most was, how do I love myself, take care of myself, not just physically, but also mentally. Because depression not only start with adults, we need to help the little ones too, because that was so emotionally barren on the kids to be isolated, to be separated. And so there's a lot that we as people needed to learn from these lessons with COVID. And like I said, it's still here and we still got the same challenges. So in dealing with the public, it's important that we need to know how to talk with them and share with them, how do you take care of yourself? What lessons do you need to be taught? So I'm excited to be here and I look forward to the presentation.
Ms. Anderson. Good evening, everyone. I bring you greetings on behalf of the KNWA newsroom, where there is a lot of excitement, not only about our speaker's message, but about the speaker. And I have to say, I do have a rare edition now of one of Ms. Nelson's first books.
The first book.
The first book.
You have a first edition I haven't seen since I wrote that thing a long time. But that dress, I was a size 0. I couldn't get that dress together. I wanted to. That's a true story.
I'm so honored to be sitting across from you. This is a truly a full circle moment. Folks from our newsroom decided to put their assignments in early just so they could come out and be witness and be at the table. It's a table that we all deserve to sit at because we are all connected by the invisible and the deadly COVID-19 pandemic. We're all survivors. And it's a life-altering and it's a painful experience. But right now, it is healing time. And to help us navigate through that healing process is none other than the illustrious and the incomparable Miss Sophia A. Nelson.
Y'all are real good for my ego down there. And I'm going to cut that bio in half.
I'm over me. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll behave, I promise.
I tried. Anyway, go ahead.
In your latest book, you discuss taking care of everyone but yourself. So tell us, how did you realize that you were not taking care of yourself?
Well, I think that as women, we'll start there. It's International Women's Day. It is a moment where globally women all over the world are connecting in sisterhood and celebrating our differences. The one thing I've heard on every single platform as I went on social media today was how exhausted women are and how tired women are and how emotionally drained women are. That's not anything new. What's new about it is that we're starting to talk about it. And we're saying, I don't want to live like this anymore. If you were here this afternoon for the luncheon, I asked a question and I said something to the effect of, when's the last time you asked yourself what you wanted? All the women raised their hand like they hadn't, and the men were sitting there looking around like, I don't have any issues with that. And that's, guys, stick with me, I'm not allowed more to take what they want, do what they want, say what they need, and we are socialized to meet that need. We are helpmates, equal wives, etc., right? But what women are realizing now is that if I'm burned out, and if I'm drained, and my cup is empty, I'm not a good wife, a good mother, a good partner, a good executive, a good leader. How many of you have had that boss, male or female, who you knew really needed some emotional help? And you couldn't bring it up for fear that you get fired. But you could see in the way they were acting, or your family member, your loved one. So what the tipping point for me was, my mother, who is in her 70s but was still a labor and delivery nurse up until the last couple of years, healthy, looks great, everything's good, she got suddenly very ill. And I mean, I'm talking suddenly, like it was 1 minute normal, the next it wasn't good, and she was unable to work. She had to move into my house. And I became everything I do in the world plus a caretaker. And not only are you dealing with the emotions of your parent being unwell, and my sibling, we won't talk about that, no help. I'm the oldest, I'm the girl, right? So there's this expectation again that I've got it covered. Sophia can handle it. She doesn't need anything. I see a lot of you nodding because you've been through it. And then I started to get sick. I got COVID when I was in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, in February 2020. I was the keynote speaker at a very large event. There were thousands of people there. About 150 people or so got sick at that event, but at that point, we didn't even know what it was yet. We didn't have a test. We couldn't take it. Nobody knew. You knew you had something, but you didn't know what. And I was deathly ill. I'm lucky to still be here. I didn't end up intubated or something. I was one of the lucky people, but I have some damage to a heart valve now and some other things. I can't ride my Peloton the way I used to be able to. And so I had to make some life changes, but that was a real wake up between Mom getting ill in November of 2019 and then me in February 2020 and everything else going on in the world. I was like, this ain't working. And I started to realize that I had to start saying no. No is a complete sentence if you didn't know that. No. Just no. And that's good for all of us. And so I think the answer to your question, I took a little bit of a circuitous route to get there, but I wanted to connect us in that it's usually some life event that happens that shakes us. We already know we're in trouble. We already know we're not doing the right things. We already know we're walking a fine line, but women are the worst at this, and Black women are the ultimate worst at this, of taking care of ourselves. Men do it a little bit better, but as we see every day around us, men's depression, men's upset, men's anxiety turns into anger and frustration, and then you see the escalation of violence in homes, or the escalation in places of work where you see violent things that happen. Men will harm themselves in very violent ways. It's an interesting thing, and that's because, as we talked about today, men aren't given permission to be human beings. And so I want to kind of bring us full circle to say this. Our country is deeply divided right now. COVID divided us. I'm old enough to remember when you could get vaccines and nobody had an issue with it. It disrupted our country. It turned into a political issue. It divided our country. Our country is divided right now, and I don't like it. Because the thing is, before you come to me with your tribe, and by that I mean as a woman, as a man, as a Black person, as a this person or that person, how about we try being human beings first? And how about we remember that the one thing each of us has in this room, regardless of the hue of our skin or anything else, is that we're humans. We have feelings. We need compassion and kindness and goodness. We need love. We need to be able to provide for our families. We need to be able to to be connected. And so, as the good lady out here, Beverly, said from Ashna, we saw that not only did we deal with this big physical scourge of health, it turned into a mental health crisis that we are now just starting to see the effects of. Look at the suicide among our children and our teens. This didn't happen when I was in high school and I ain't that old. I'm old, but I ain't that old. And so, I'm asking myself, what went wrong? It's the devices, but we'll talk about that later. And I mean that that sincerely. It's not the young people's fault, but they're not connected in the way we all used to be. The community. And as the president said, you have this wonderful school here and this wonderful opportunity to engage in dialogue like this. And I'm really excited to be here. I literally could have been anywhere, but I wanted to be here. And I think it's a great opportunity for me to grow and to expand and to meet different people and to hear different ideas and different perspectives. And I think that's how we fix this. We start listening to one another. We start respecting that we all need a break. We all need to sleep. Sleep, ladies, sleep. That's a real thing, sleep. I'm talking to me. And when we do better at self, everything else falls into line.
One thing that struck me about your book is that you waste no time getting to the good nuggets about how we can change our lives and alter our course. And as you said earlier, it takes a life-altering moment before we realize that we are all we've got. For you, you were literally on your deathbed in Louisiana, not realizing what you had, and you didn't survive COVID once, you survived it twice.
Right. After I got my vaccines, I went to my house in South Carolina, and I thought about that summer. I thought about, should I go? Because they didn't have a high vaccine rate, and again, no politics here. I'm just being honest. And I thought maybe I should just wait. And I got a breakthrough, but that breakthrough was easy. That kind of went fast because I had the vaccine trait, so I was fine. A little miserable, but it was okay. But yes, I was actually in Indiana because I left Louisiana and I was dumb enough. Let me just say this. When I look back now, I'm embarrassed by my behavior. I should have taken myself home and went to bed and saw my doctor, but I didn't. Because I didn't know what I had. I thought maybe I had the flu or a really bad cold. So instead of going home and taking care of myself, I went to Indiana where I had 4 speaking engagements and a big event that was sold out. They had planned for 6 months. And me being the type of person I'm responsible. I took your money, I need to show up and do the work. I'm going to be there whether I'm dead or not, I'm going to show up. And I wish I could do a PowerPoint and show you the pictures. If you were to see the speech that day, that place was packed. And none of us knew anything about this new disease. It's February 2020. And I had about 103 plus degree temperature. The sorors took very good care of me. One doctor, Nicole Wilson, is an infectious disease doctor. Amazing. They took care of me. And I said, don't let me fall. Whatever happens, I'm going to get up here. You guys kind of get blocked for me on the stage. Don't let me go down. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, I got this. So I shortened the speech from 30 to 15 minutes. I knocked it out. Looked great. You would have never known I was sick. I was sick as a dog. And then that made it worse, right? So I was stupid enough to go do that. I didn't touch anybody. I stayed away. We didn't have masks yet. And I went back home. The moral of the story is, when I was laying in the hotel, and you're in a hotel and you're in a suite and you're really sick and you don't know if you've got this new invisible thing that's killing other people, and it really makes you think about your life. And it was a moment for me where I was like, you are once sorry. Get it together. And that's when I began to realize that I had to get therapy and all that. I'm not ashamed to say it. I was like, you need some help. You write all these great books and you do all this stuff, but healer needs to be healed. Leader needs to be led. You coach people, you need to be coachable. Y'all hear me? Because some of y'all need this. Not as you know. And it just takes a little humility and a little bit of saying, it's all good. I'm just human. And it was a game changer. And out of that was birthed an amazing book. It did really well and it's doing well, and I'm proud of it.
That leads me to my next and my last question for you before we head to the audience. That's an example of you not listening to yourself and not taking care of yourself. So how can we harness what you have learned in this experience, and how do we know when we're not doing enough for ourselves and doing too much for everyone else?
Well, I can show you better than I can tell you. So I say we start the masterclass portion of this event here, which you're gonna like. Get your pen and paper out if you still believe in pen and paper, or get your iPad or your phone and take notes. Get on Twitter, get on Instagram, get on Facebook, tag me at I am Sophia Nelson on everything. There's a blue check, you can find me. And let's share what we know. And also, you might want to use the IWD 2023 tag or International International Women's Day 2023 tag. Because it's important that we share, that we take care of one another. Like I said, I want us to get back to being humans first, instead of all these groups we're in and all these things that we're talking about that divide us. There's a whole lot that unites us, and that's our humanity and our need for basic things like care, connection, rest, love, success, joy, laughter. One of the big things that I was laying there was like, what brings you joy in your life? What are you doing? And that's a hard moment when you have to stop. And I would say most of us in this room and most people we know are workaholics. And it's the devices, because we can't get away from it. In the old days, you came home at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you had dinner, you had a structure, you watched the evening news, there were 3 channels, maybe 5. And there was nothing but your family and you and your community. I'm not saying we didn't have problems, because of course we did, but they weren't like this, and people didn't want to hurt themselves like they do now. People weren't as anxious as they are now. People weren't as angry as, have y'all noticed people are angry? Like it's a flick, it's a boom. We're all on edge because we're not taking care of ourselves. So let's do it. You good? And then if you want to come back later, we can do it.
Well, then I have to take my seat and get my notes
All
out.
right, let's go. All right. So let me make sure I got this right. Okay, so what do I do to advance the slide? Does anybody know? Just use the arrow.
The one, the arrow is missing.
The one is arrow that's missing. Okay, so let's start with this. Again, what I'm going to do is, and this is going to go quickly, so keep up. You can tell I like to move fast, right? I'll try to slow down a little bit so you get it. But I want to start with a statement that we've kind of already talked about, right? The moment that we're living in is very different. It's unlike anything that even humankind, a global pandemic that really kept us all in for 2 years at least. As a professor teaching students online when they were paying, $50,000 a year for tuition and they couldn't even come out their dorm rooms, and the depression of students and the anxiety and all the stuff we're dealing with. You couldn't see your colleagues at work. So the quiet quitting and the people leaving marriages, people starting new relationships, people waking up and saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not living. So these times that we're living in now, they're uncertain, but you know what can't be uncertain? You about you. You've got to leave here today and tell everybody you know that you have to be a priority in your own life. That's pretty simple stuff, but we struggle with it. So, we've been talking about self-care, right? But I like to use the example of Titanic. We've all seen the movie Titanic, right? Big iceberg, the guys see the iceberg, they start yelling, turn, turn, turn. They see the tip of the iceberg. They think they missed it. But what was underneath is what destroyed that ship and sunk. It was what was unseen. That's the same for every single person in this room. It's the stuff you don't talk about. It's the stuff you don't want to deal with. It's the stuff you like, I can't handle that. I refuse to handle that. If I ignore it, it will go away. It will not. It will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and ultimately, it will sink your life. That stuff that you're running from, that stuff under here that you don't want to fool with, you better deal with it. You better face it so you can fix it. And there is a way to do that, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. So why am I talking to you about this? Well, I think Beverly talked about it. We've talked about it a little bit in our questions. Every one of us is aware of what we're hearing on social media, in the news, in our families. We had a family member very recently serving in the military, dealing with severe depression, and started to say they wanted to hurt themselves. Devastating to us as the family, but not surprising when I really think about it. Because the anxiety that I saw displayed earlier on, and the things that people don't want to face and that they don't want to talk about, they just begin to mount up and they become insurmountable. And it's happening in our military. It's happening. There's a United States Senator right now who checked himself into Walter Reed Hospital. John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, newly just sworn in. He spent the last month or so in Walter Reed
he got some pretty bad advice because there was a lot of pressure on him to stay in that race to win. So once again, he got put last so that the party could win. I understand, but man, is it worth it? Because now you're sworn in, you're a new United States Senator, and your first 2 months, you're in a hospital unwell. Folks, my nanny used to say, she was an old country girl from South Carolina, and she used to say, there's a running day and a catching day. And I love that saying because as I've gotten older, I understand it more. Sooner or later, you can't run from you and your stuff, and it will catch you. So what I want to encourage us all to do is take your cape off, ladies. You're not Superwoman. You're never going to be. And then take the armor and the knighting clothing off and understand that you're vulnerable too, that you're human too. And let's talk about it. So I think that we all feel it. We all know it exists. And the good news is forums like this, and I really want to commend you, Sora Alvina, for tracking me down over the last year, finally finding me, and getting me down here, and caring enough about your community, and your students, and your faculty, and thank you to the Chancellor and to your wonderful team. Please give them a round of applause. So let's break this down. Let's do some aha moments, as Oprah would say, right? So self-care by definition is simply taking care of you. And let me disabuse you of this notion. Self-care is not selfish. Period. Stop. Just like I told you, no is a complete sentence. Self-care is a complete sentence. You have the right, every human being in this room has the right to give yourself some rest, some respite, some joy, some love, some care. You're entitled to it. So don't let anybody make you feel guilty. If you have anybody in your life, and I mean your family is usually the worst abuser of everything, but if you have anybody in your life telling you that you aren't entitled to rest, that you're entitled to some downtime for yourself, that you need to keep going, that's not okay. And you need to nip that in the bud now. And that includes children. Children are baby narcissists. They just are. We all know it. They don't mean to be, but they are. And that means it's me. I want to be fed. I want to be hugged. I want to be comforted. Okay, that's good, but mommy needs a timeout too. Mommy needs to eat too. Mommy needs to sleep too. Daddy needs to be. We don't set boundaries anymore, and we wonder why things are out of control. It's because we have somehow decided that we no longer need to set boundaries. We're afraid of upsetting or offending or hurting everybody. We need to get over that. All right, so Google did this interesting study on the number of searches that went up on self-care, started pre-pandemic. So there was something happening, and then when the pandemic hit, it just blew up because, like I said, all of a sudden we were vulnerable. And so I'm setting the table for what we're going to get into, and I want you to know it's not just you. You're not losing your mind. Nothing's wrong with you. You're just coming out of a very difficult period. We all are. And we need to just be able to say it out loud because it feels better when we say it out loud. And I like to say, you got to declutter. You know how you got that room in your house with all the junk in it, and you just keep putting more junk in it, and you shut the door, and now you entirely avoid going into the room at all. Well, that's what happens emotionally, right? You just keep shoving stuff. And what I want you to do is be brave, find your courage, and understand that you're worth it. This really gets down to you saying, I'm worth it, I want more. I want my family to have more of me, a happier me, a better me, a healthier me. You just gotta get to a point where you declutter. So let's define what emotional IQ is. It's a very wonky term, but it's very simple. When I say emotional intelligence, and what we're gonna do when we get into the 7 life lessons, because I can only give you 7, I can't get through 21 lessons in the time we have. But I picked 7 that I thought were important, that you could literally walk away from here and say, okay, I learned something. EIQ is simply how you assess yourself, how you know yourself, understand yourself, and how you see that in others, and how you engage them with compassion and empathy. We need a lot more soft skills in our culture right now. We're real good at the hard stuff, but we need to learn how to just shut our mouths and listen and be empathetic. And like I said, get past all this crap that we do
you're a Republican, I'm a Democrat, you're this, I'm in this group, you're in that group, you're bad, I'm good. We ain't gonna make it like that. Try reaching out, try having a cup of coffee with somebody that you would never have a cup of coffee with. Not because you just don't know them. Open up and expand and listen and share, and you'd be amazed how much in common you have with people, because we're humans first. All right, so let's get to it. 7 life lessons I learned while taking care of everyone but me. And I know a lot of people can relate to that second half, right? How many people feel that you take care of everybody but you? Ooh, that's a lot. And I think some of you wanted to raise your hand, but you just couldn't bring yourself to do it. But it's okay. All right, so, number 1, 3 questions that I want you to ask yourself. I talked about this afternoon. 3 very important questions, and I don't mean just ask yourself today. I mean, you gotta ask yourself every day. Quietly to yourself. You don't have to stand up on the kitchen table and announce these things to everybody. But you need to invest in you, and it starts with an assessment. When I was laying there, half dead, not near my family, not near anything I cared about, I'm thinking, am I gonna die in a hotel room of a fever because I'm stupid? And I wouldn't go home because I had to prove that I was Superwoman with a cape, and I had to show up and show how, yeah. First question, what do I want? I want you to park with that for a moment. When's the last time you asked yourself, what do I want? I'm talking about what you want from your life, you're living. All of us has this life, whatever we get. I love the Dash poem. You're born, you die, and there's the life that happens in between. What do you want from it? And you're never too old. Some of you think, well, my time has passed, Sophia. I didn't make good choices, or I have regrets, or I have guilt. Let go of that. Like I said earlier, regret is the worst enemy you will ever have, because you can do nothing about what has passed. You can only learn from it, apologize for it sincerely, ask where you can make amends or restitution if you were wrong, forgive those who you may never get the apology that you're owed from. A lot of us are lugging around stuff, bags of bricks, that are weighing us down. Ask yourself what you want from this thing called life. What do you want? Not what everybody else wants. What do you want? The next question is deeper. It's that iceberg I talked about. It's the need. Needs are different from wants, right? Because what you want, you know what Mick Jagger says, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you get what you need, right? So what I need is a deep thing. It's something that I need to exist, to breathe, to do, to show up. It's connection. And that's what Beverly was talking about, and that's what I'm talking about. That self-care, that self-value, that self-worth is what propels you. Every successful person that's ever walked this earth, whether it was John Glenn, the astronaut, or Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat, or Dr. King, or Sojourner Truth, or Abraham Lincoln, or we could go on and on and on and on and on and mention all the great men and women that have walked this earth. All of them had one thing in common. They knew the answer to these questions. They might not have said it out loud, but they knew what they wanted, and they knew what they needed to get there. And the most important part is, how am I feeling? This gets back to a very important thing about self-assessment. Again, ask yourself, if you're not working out, why you're not working out. Why do you keep eating all that food that you know is really bad for you? You can eat and work out too. They're not going to be either or. You can take care of your body and your temple, and you can still enjoy good drink, good food. Most of the time, we substitute things to fill us when we feel unfulfilled, right? Eating is a big one for most of us, right? It's emotional comfort. But I'm not just talking about how you feel physically. How do you feel? Are you having a hard time getting up? Are you withdrawing from people? Are you isolated? Have you given up on love? Are you brave enough to date again if you're newly divorced or if you lost someone you love? I'm talking about how you feel, because when you can answer these 3 questions, what do I want, what do I need, how am I feeling? You're ready to
meditating, when you're doing your workout, when you're doing whatever you do that's for you, ask yourself. Because all of us gets one go round. You get one and you're not coming back. So you better live this life and live it to the full. Whatever that means for you, do it. Okay, reframe your thoughts. This one is huge. This one is huge. What you think about, you bring about. Fact. The state of your mind determines everything about your life. You may not believe it, but it's true because your thoughts become your words, and your words become your deeds, and your deeds become your character. It becomes who you are. So if you have a negative mind right now and you are just in this vortex and you're spinning down, ask for help. There is help available and there is no shame. Counseling is secret, it's proprietary, it's confidential. You have resources, use it. And if you know somebody in your family that's struggling, don't turn an eye, don't avoid it. Get engaged, talk, learn, listen. Because at the end of the day, it's all about what's going on in here. Reframing your thoughts is power. It's how you take your power back. If you take your power back when you say, I'm not living this way anymore, and life doesn't happen to me, life happens for me. For me. See how I changed those words, to me or for me? Same sentence, just flip the words. So reframe your thoughts. And like I said, get rid of that stuff that's behind you because you can't do anything about it. It's over. It's done. Forgive yourself and do better because that's all any of us can do. Next, get out of your own way. This is a big one. I think this is the number one problem in our society right now. We are our own worst enemies. And it's because we keep, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, it's not going to work out for you. Okay? I'll be kind. You have to understand that the only person you can change is you. The only person you can fix is you. The only person that you can reckon with and get to go in a different direction is you. We have no power over other people to do it as much as we might want to. Yes, we can love. Yes, we can encourage. Yes, we can care. But when I talk about setting healthy boundaries, getting out of your own way, one of the things I had to stop cold, and there's some people that don't like me anymore, but I don't care. I had to stop giving money to certain people. Because do I look like a bank? A Bank of America over here? No. And not only will you never pay it back, you're not even nice about it. You feel entitled to it. And what I realized was, instead of being mad at them, I needed to look in the mirror at me. What's your problem? Why would you give money to this person who keeps doing this over and over and over again, and you're expecting them to be grateful? Or you're expecting them to say thank you? Or you're expecting, they're not gonna. So get out of your own way, Sophia, and leave that person alone. Just stop. It's that no, it's that complete sentence, it's that boundary. And we're going to talk about boundaries, but getting out of your own way is what it means. You got to look at yourself. And most of us go through this life, and it's sad. No emotional intelligence. People don't have a clue how wrecked up they are. They just don't want to deal with it, so they make the rest of us deal with it. Right? Don't be that person. Manage your expectations. This is a big one. We tell ourselves that, well, if I don't have any expectations, then life will be easy. That's dumb. Everybody should have expectations. Everybody in this room should have expectations of your romantic partner or your spouse, as they should have them of you. But, the key is you have to agree on what those expectations are. People are not mind readers. You're not a mind reader. It's called use your big girl words and your big boy words and say what you want, what you need, and share how you feel. Manage your expectations of yourself and others simply means, yes, we have a right in the workplace. If Alvina's Everybody knows that. Because we show up in the world exactly how we feel and how we think. So if I'm negative and life is just bad and woe is me and all this stuff listen, if I sat here and told you all the things that have happened in my life, if you read the book, I'd share some of those things. But I refuse to let anything stamp out this light. I'm just not going to do it. Until I'm done and the good Lord says you're finished, that's it. But until then, life happens for me, not to me. It's a matter of attitude, because when I look at where I started from and the humble beginnings for me to turn out to be the person I turned out to be coming out of my house, impossible. But I had good people along the way. Like I told the story this morning about President George Herbert Walker Bush. And that little time he spent with me when he told me how to write thank you notes. And Sophia started Christmas list. Here I am, I was in my 20s, I'm in my 50s. I still remember that, not just because it was a president, because it was something that I did that actually worked to my benefit. Basic manners, Sophia, write those thank you notes. They're going to pay off for you. I have never in my life, this is a true story, ever applied for a job, not one time. And you've heard my resume, right? It was people picking up the phone. Hire Sophia, she's free. You want Sophia? Bring in Sophia. That's how I got here. Sora Marquis Pierre brought me to the state for the first time in 2018 when I spoke at the sorority thing. Do you know how much work I've done in this state since then? Unbelievable. I told you Virginia's concerned I'm leaving and moving to Louisiana. And it's all about the word of mouth. It's about how you treat people. Because people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That's Maya Angelou, that's not me. Anyway, use good manners. All right, my grandmother, go back to her, 6th grade education, South Carolina girl. She used to say, baby, you better know your front row. And I would say, what are you talking about, Grandma? I know exactly what she means now. She means build an amazing life circle of friends and people you can count on. This one is critical to your survival as a human being. Because without the circle that I have, when I'm out of town right now, I've had texts every few hours we went by, we took your mom breakfast, we took her lunch, we took her dinner, we made sure she took her medicine. I don't have to worry because I have people I can count on. You have to build a good row of people in your life because you will need them throughout your life. And who you take counsel from matters. Who you listen to matters. Some of y'all listen to some pretty dumb people. And you know it, and you keep listening to it. I don't know why. But I would encourage you to get some better friends and to get some people that want to see you win. Get some people that clap when you win. Get some people that are there for you as you have been there for them. Reciprocity to me is a bare minimum. It should be reflex. If we're friends and we're in each other's lives, I should do for you, you should do for me. It should just be second nature. It shouldn't be this lopsided thing where I'm lugging you along and I'm all jacked up and when I need something, you hang up the phone, you're too busy. Don't abide that. Life's too short. Say no. Set boundaries. Build a row, a circle that will literally determine the trajectory of your life. If we talk to everybody in here, particularly your chancellor, all the other people who are leaders, they will tell you they've had good people in their life who sowed into them, who were there for them, people they could count on, people they could go to. As I like to say, stop being a go-to for people you can't go to. All right, I'm going to end with this one here, and then we'll take questions. Again, I can only give you a dusting of what's in the book. I can't do 21, it's not enough time. Don't cancel people. Call them out and call them in. We are living in an age of, let's throw the words out, cancel culture, what do we, wokeness, what else, what other words, give me some other words, what do we got? Ghost. Yeah, ghosting, it's all bad. And it means that we have really given up on each other as people. It means that we would rather avoid, and it is the devices. Let me be clear let me just say, it's the devices.
right? But think about our instinct now is to cut. I'm done. I'm out. Really? In this setting here, in an academic environment, this is where it's like a science lab for ideas, for debate, for discussion. Tension. Tension is good. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Our founding motto, 1780. And I've said this before, if you think Massachusetts and Virginia got along, they did not. Although John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were best friends, they spent half their time not speaking to each other before they died. And if you think South Carolina and Rhode Island got along, they did not. But when it came down to it, they realized we may have different points of views. We may not agree with what the South is doing if we're in the North on the issue of slavery. We don't think that's right. They do. But guess what? We hate the King of England more. And we don't want to be subjects of him. And we don't want to be subject to his abuses and his taxes and all those things that we don't like because they impinge upon our freedoms. Hypocritical, of course. Absolutely. But the truth is, when you come from a mindset of what unites us, how can I reach out to this person or see it from this person's point of view, even if I don't agree, and still sit at the table, fellowship with them, and have a drink with them? Whatever happened to we argue, we disagree, and we go get a beer or a drink? Where'd that go? Now it's I hate you, I want you gone, I don't want to look at you, get away from me. Guys, this isn't sustainable. And in this environment, you've got to teach the young people and the people who are retraining and educating that the strength of this great country and the strength of this great state and all the rest of them is in our diversity, in our differences. We don't have to all agree. I don't want to agree or want people to agree with everything I believe in. That would be boring, wouldn't it? Yes. I like to mix it up and fight a little bit. It's kind of fun. But let's fight fair. Let's be respectful. I don't gotta hate you because you see things differently than I do, or vice versa. That's what built this country, and that's how we've been able to, decade after decade, generation after generation, become a more perfect union. We're at one of our fight stages right now. We're at one of our we don't like each other stages. We've been here before. And it's bad. But it's the good people in this room who want to do better, who want to practice better self-care, who want to be transparent and authentic, who are going to help us to move this country forward. And it's going to keep us still being the great light of the world that we are. So I think to wrap this, if I could sum it all up, it gets back to the three questions. What do I want? What do I need? And how am I feeling? When the book came out last June and I was all over the morning shows, and you had some of the most famous hosts on television, like, tearing up, talking about, I never asked myself what I wanted. Seriously, I don't even know how to answer. It's messing me up. I never thought about it. A lot of us in this room have never thought about it. Not on a deep level, not on a level of post-COVID, over 1 million plus of our fellow Americans dying. This state got hit hard by COVID, very hard. You lost a lot of people in Louisiana. It's a life-changing event that should really make us stop and say, man, life is short. If I get 100 years, that ain't enough. And most of us ain't getting 100, right? And so I would just ask you on this International Women's Day to kind of make a pledge to yourself and maybe to the person next to you that you're going to reach out and try to know somebody who's different from you, maybe from a different country than you, a different faith than you, and start up a friendship. See what you can learn. To promise yourself not to just throw people away when they upset you or they say something that really makes your blood boil. Step back now. Let me think about that. I'm a smart person. Let me see if I can engage. Now, you know where the line is. Like I said, we're not done. None of us in this room is done. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So we know when somebody's way out of line. We know when somebody's being a racist or a sexist or whatever. We know. We don't need it explained. But I think we're too quick now to throw those labels on one another. And it's really making us sick because we hate everybody and everybody hates us. And
to sit with it. Because there are a few people in this room who heard me tonight, and I promise you, like clockwork, this is true, who are going to get in touch with me a few years down the road and say, I ran for city council and won. Or I went and got my master's degree. Or I did something else. They're going to tell me that because they're going to say, I actually asked myself the question. I was in a situation that wasn't healthy for me. I was in a relationship that was abusive to me. And I heard you, and I really did the work on me. Because at the end of the day, you, as Michelle Obama once said, we are all we have. That's it. Each other. So thank you for having me. I'll take your questions. Thank you. You got your questions? Did you want to do some more dialogue or any audience questions? You should moderate that. So come on. Now don't be shy. Come on. You got one. You ask questions.
All right, does anyone in the audience want to ask a question? All right.
Sophia, what are some of the things you would suggest we do in terms of like self-help and making us better? I just believe in that. And so what are some of the things you would suggest, or even that you have experienced personally, so that you can bring us to that point of just starting?
So I gave you the answer, and I'm going to keep going back to it because it works. Until you know you, and this isn't some Zen Deepak Chopra lecture. We're not doing that. I'm telling you real, raw, real. You have to know you. Because the only way you improve your life, the only way you do better with your life, is when you know what you want from your life. Most of us, and people don't mean to be, they're not trying to be, but I think most of us are sleepwalking. I hate to say it like that. I think we start out young. Young people listen to me. We start out young and everything's roses, right? You got everything ahead of you, and then life starts happening and stuff gets thrown at you. And it happens to all of us. But I think you get a little jaded at some point, and you get a little, well, maybe that dream I had can't happen, or maybe this is just my lot in life, or this is just what it is, I just gotta suffer through it. Man, that is a terrible way to live. That's not a judgment, because we've all been there. We all hit moments like that. But what I want you to understand is I don't care if you're 20, I don't care if you're 35, 45, 50, 65, 70, or older. You still got life in you, and there's still something you can do with your life. Every day we see amazing stories about amazing fellow Americans from all walks of life in this great state here, all over this country, doing amazing, feeding people, clothing people, educating people, helping people, building things, starting things, creating jobs. And when you read their story, you're like, really? They just made a decision. If I can answer your question, most base, core, cut to the chase, make a decision. Because you know when you don't make a decision, you've made one, right? And most of us don't make the decision. We avoid it, we ignore it, and we hope that it'll just go away. And it won't, it'll just keep showing up. Generational curses are real, but you can break them. You hear me? Family stuff is big stuff. I open the book saying get out of their box, because the family stuff will take you out if you let it. Your family is rough. Even if you got a good one on a good day, they're still alive. Right? These are the people you got stuck with. You didn't ask for. This is what you got. So you got to navigate that thing. But most of us, all of us has a beginning. All of us starts from something. And we carry our parents' faith, our parents' virtues, our parents' ideas, our parents' values, all that stuff with us until we get grown and say, yeah, I either want that or I don't, or I'm going to tweak that and do a little of this. But you always come back to and revert to what you learned. That's real. So you have to be very in tune with who you are and make sure that you're not still answering to the little girl that they said, oh, you the pretty one. Oh, you the smart smart one. You to that one. Oh, you that one. You know the kind of stuff that does to you, those tapes that still play in your head at 50 years old, but somebody told you at 10? That's real. So you gotta know you. That's the answer. I can't tell you how to fix you. Only you can do that. Next question. Come on, don't be shy. Some of my men folk, I know you got something to tell me. Say something to me.
I don't have a question, but when you're talking about people and letting them in your life versus taking them out of your life, the story you gave about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas was
Oh, in the
so
book.
impactful.
Yeah.
If someone else has a question, if you could briefly share, it was awesome.
Okay, so she's talking about where I talk about don't cancel people and block your blessings because sometimes they come in forms you wouldn't believe or imagine or be open to. So great story. My first semester of law school, Clarence Thomas was nominated for the Supreme Court. We all know how that played out. Those of us who are old enough, you young folks, you got to believe it. But about, let's say, I don't know, 10 years later in my life or so, I was getting sworn into the bar of the Supreme Court. And, let me back up. I'm getting forgetful. So, when I went to work on Capitol Hill as a young committee counsel, I was on C-SPAN for the first time. And Justice Thomas happened to be watching at home, and he saw me on C-SPAN. Young black female Republican, he's like, okay, I don't know her. So anyway, he sees me on C-SPAN. He calls my boss, Barbara Comstock, who was a congresswoman from Virginia, and says, Barbara, saw this committee council you have, and Miss Nelson, she looks great. Tell her I want to meet her. Tell her to come over to the court. So Barbara comes and says, hey, Justice Thomas saw you, thought you were great, would love you to have come coffee with him. And I looked at her horrified. Like, really? But you know what I'm thinking, right? I don't want to have coffee with him at all because I believe to be the hill. I did. I won't lie. So I said, I'm not going, I don't know. So I go home and I talked to my folks about it. And my mother's very quiet. She was saying, she said, oh, you're going. And I said, what? I'm grown. She said, no, you're not. She said, you're going. And I said, Mom, I don't want to go have coffee with him. You know what's wrong with him. He's creepy. I don't want to go there. And she's like, Sophia, stop. He is a sitting United States Supreme Court Justice. That man is not bringing you to his office to do anything to you. He said he wants to see you. He's impressed, but you're going to go. You're going to take a gift for his assistant. And you're going to go and have coffee. I was hot. Because she won, of course. I did what she said. So I go, I show up. And I never forget walking into his office, and when you walk into his office, you got a perception about people. There's a big picture of Frederick Douglass, there's Malcolm X, and there's Martin Luther King on his wall. And I was like, wow, that's deep. So we ended up sitting, which I thought would be 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It ended up being an hour conversation. And it started a friendship through the years. Notes, whatever, him encouraging me, seeing me keep going, I'm going to eat my Wheaties. Keep doing it, you're going to do great things. So his mother had passed away some years later. I wrote that handwritten note, card, sorry that your mother passed, praying for you guys. Said he kept the note for years on the fireplace in his office. But he said, you'd be amazed at how many people they knew that didn't write a note, right? Oh, I'm sorry you lost your mom, but they didn't take time. So long story short, I'm getting sworn into the bar of the Supreme Court. So when you get sworn into the bar of the Supreme Court, you have to have a sponsor. And if you want guests to come, you have to register by a certain time, and they only allow one of your parents. They don't even allow two of them. You either have a spouse or a parent. So, of course, my mother's thrilled. She wants me, she's excited about the bar, Supreme Court, but I missed the deadline. I just missed it. I said, Mom, sorry, you can't go. She was not happy with me. She said, she was very upset. So I said, okay. So I said, I'll call Justice Thomas. So I pick up the phone and I call his assistant and I say, has Justice got a minute? I kind of messed up. I didn't get my stuff done on time. My mom wants to come. She's upset. He gets on the phone. He says, got it taken care of. I'll have a ticket for Mom. I'll see you at the swearing-in. So we go. Mom's thrilled. It's great. Here's the moral of the story. Had I not gone to have coffee with him some 12, 13 years earlier, whatever it was at the time, when I needed favor down the road when I became an attorney before the bar of the United States Supreme Court. I wouldn't have had a justice I could call on or anybody that would have been able to help me. The moral of the story is this: you never know who you're going to need a favor from. You never know what doors being opened for you, even through a source that you might be a little suspect of or a little bit shady or whatever you might think at the time. Sometimes we're pleasantly surprised by the people that show up in our lives. But it's all about walking through the door. If I hadn't shown up and listened to my mother, who was wiser and smarter, and she was right, he's been nothing but wonderful to me my entire career. And when I needed something, I was able to get it done. And I think that's something we can all learn. You know, there's a lot of things about Justice Thomas that I simply don't agree with on many things. I've written some columns that are critical, and when I do, I call him up and say, hey, I'm gonna hit you a little bit. He's like, okay, just be fair. I'm like, I'll always be fair. But what I'm saying is it's an amazing relationship of two people who are really on very polar opposites. Some things we agree on, but many things we just don't. But have had a very good, cordial friendship with him and respect him. So that's the story. Anybody else, any questions, thoughts? All right. You have anything, Sora, that you want to close with or that you'd like to touch on? Okay, good.
Wasn't she wonderful?
So I asked that Juanita G. Woods, Monroe City Council District 3, come for a special presentation. And while she's coming, I want to appreciate those individuals who have made this incredible International Women's Day a success and partnered together to sponsor Professor Sophia Nelson. So it was Cassandra Jackson and Carla Mercy and our Student Government Association President David Payne. Awesome day. You could have gone, Sophia, you could have gone anywhere. You could choose where you want to go. You chose to come to Monroe, Louisiana.
Remember, we plotted this together. I said, well, let's do International Women's Day. You know, and it's funny, I told you, Mika Brzezinski has her big conference in Abu Dhabi over there, and I'm Mark Simone on. They're like, Sophia, where you at? I'm like, I'm in Louisiana. They're like, what? I'm where I want to be. It's all good. Abu Dhabi.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Sarah, Sophia, it's been a pleasure to just have you here in Monroe and then to have you in my district. Now, I can tell you that, so while you're in my district, I'm just really thrilled to have you here. I'm so happy that Sarah, Juanita, you probably need to show up. And I'm kind of, don't tell him I said it, but I'm kind of happy that Mary didn't show up because I get a chance to do this. He had been here, then he would have been done, but I've been standing around. And so since he's not here, I get the opportunity to do it. And I'm going to read it. I did a really good job on it. So it says, whereas throughout history, women have opened the doors of opportunity for subsequent generations as community leaders, educators, doctors, scientists, child care providers, and many more. Women power our economy and lead our nation. As first responders and service members, they stand watch over our lives and liberties. As innovators, entrepreneurs, and essential workers in every industry, they represent the very best of our cities, states, and nation. Whereas March 8th is International Women's Day, a day of celebration that collective powers of women, past, present, and future. A day set aside to uphold women achievements, recognize challenges, focus greater attention on women's rights and gender equalities, encourage and mobilize all people to do their part to bring a positive positive change. Whereas the city of Monroe wishes to take this opportunity to celebrate the diversity of all people in our cities and to learn from the women of our community and honor their stories about their experiences and aspirations, let us use this day as an opportunity to commit ourselves to respect the rights of all women and lead secure, creative, healthy, and free lives. Whereas the city of Monroe welcomes award-winning author, journalist, and renowned international inspirational speaker Sophia A. Nelson as Louisiana Delta Community College International Day keynote speaker. Now, therefore, I, Friday Ellis, Mayor of the City of Monroe, Louisiana, and on behalf of the City Council of Monroe and its citizens, do hereby proudly proclaim today as Author Sophia A. Nelson Day.
Very humbled by this. This is awesome. I'm gonna go home and just rub this in everybody's face. They should treat me good down there, I tell you. But this has been wonderful, and I do want to come back and maybe we can get with Rick over at Grambling and come up with something that we can do collaboratively, maybe in the fall or something like that, and really do something where we can really engage a larger scale of this community, you know, from the Delta all the way up to where the Grambling area is, and figure out a way to really help engage folks. Maybe pull off some type of fair or something, I don't know, but we should do it, because I think it's really important to, in our more rural communities, because you guys you get neglected, you really do. We talk a good game, but let's face it, the cities and get all the resources and the speakers and the attention, and I think the work you're doing here is very good. So thank you all, and I'm humbled, and thank you, Chancellor, and thank you, Sora Alvina, and thank you, Student Body President, and Professor, and to everybody who's been so wonderful and kind, and Wendy, I can't wait to go drinking with you the next time I come back, and